A webinar on achieving operational excellence using Lean Six Sigma and Lean Six Sigma tools. Looking forward to talking about Lean Six Sigma and how to use both of these philosophies, these mindsets in achieving operational excellence, especially in the challenging times that we are facing in the history of world. So with that said, before I jump into introducing Lean and Six Sigma to you, I would like to do a quick poll and gauge how much you know about Lean and Six Sigma methodologies. Margaret, do we have the poll ready?
We do. I'm going to launch it right now.
Sure.
So everyone, feel free to make a selection. Oh, great. I can see people are already diving right in. And so far, most people seem to fall into the somewhat category, but people are still voting, so we'll give them another few seconds, and then we'll close it and post the results for you to see.
Great.
Okay, I think that's it. I'm going to close that out, and I'm going to share the results. Do you see that, Farouk? I'm sorry. Do you see that, Gurpreet?
Yes.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if you need me to read the results.
52% somewhat, 15% not at all. So 25% experience with the project, or 8% pro. Great. We have a good segmentation there. So since we have good 70% or so who have very limited experience, let me kind of give you a background about Lean and Six Sigma and what these are. So roots of Lean and Six Sigma, although, you know, from a layman perspective, these philosophies have been famous just in the last 30, 40 years, but really roots of Lean and Six Sigma, they can be traced to last century. You know, without doing another poll in the interest of the time, I'm an industrial engineer by trade, by the way. I did a bachelor's and a master's in industrial engineering. Really, roots of Lean and Six Sigma can be traced to last century, and we must credit people like Frederick Taylor and a lot of others. Again, in the interest of time, don't have too much time to go into the history, but think about Henry Ford. Lean, even though we use terms Lean and Six Sigma together today, Lean focuses on reducing waste. So, you know, in a nutshell, if somebody asks you, what is Lean? The fundamental focus of Lean is on reduction of waste. Six Sigma, on the other hand, focuses on reducing the variation and defects in a process, right? So think control charts, think about all the different processes within manufacturing as well as service sector. And we'll talk a lot about manufacturing and service sector and how there are, you know, misconceptions that Six Sigma is only valid in manufacturing and not so much in service sector. So in the past, when I say in the past, you know, before 2000, Lean and Six Sigma were being used separately. Lean used to be called lean manufacturing. And in the academic world where now I belong to, even today in many universities, many schools, I still see courses which are called lean manufacturing, right? So they still focus only on the lean aspect, not so much on Lean Six Sigma, because they just want to focus on the manufacturing aspect. So Six Sigma, on the other hand, really more statistical, more data oriented, focuses more on the variation, more statistical somewhat, not as much. So over a period of time in the last 20 or so years, consultants, academicians like myself, we have combined these philosophies, these mindsets, and now we have coined this new term called Lean Six Sigma, because if you think about it, when you're reducing the waste in a process and you're trying to reduce variation, the defects, if you think carefully, they are somewhat aligned. And you know, the case study that I have selected for you, that we're going to spend most of the time in this webinar, you'll see that really Lean and Six Sigma, they go hand in hand, they're married to each other, and it makes perfect sense to use these philosophies together, and hence this new term that we coined in the last 15 to 20 years called Lean Six Sigma. So walking along, many companies have reaped benefits, especially now, you know, it's countless. There are hundreds of thousands of articles, books, journals, journal articles about Lean Six Sigma success. Of course, also successful case studies as well. But if you ask me, Gurpreet, tell me one or two companies And again, I wish I could do another poll, but we have to keep on moving. Time is very limited in this webinar. Jack Welch from GE definitely comes to mind. God bless his soul. May he rest in peace. He recently left us about a month ago. And then second company, of course, Motorola. They both are credited for widespread success of Lean Six Sigma, especially in North America and United States. Success is believed to rely a lot on executive leadership, executive management, senior leadership's support, organizational culture. So unfortunately, a lot of consultants, a lot of practitioners, they tend to believe that these tools can be just applied without focusing a lot on the cultural side. And my dissertation, when I finished my Ph.D. From Rutgers Business School a few years ago, that focused only on how culture plays a very significant role in the successful deployment of Lean Six Sigma. And I'll share a little bit about that also when we go through the case study. So let's jump right into Six Sigma. So the plan of action is I'm going to spend about 5-6 minutes on Six Sigma concepts, another 5-6 minutes on Lean, and then I'm going to spend about 20 to 30 minutes on a case study that will talk about how to achieve operational excellence using these concepts, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. Okay, so Six Sigma. Sigma is the 18th letter of Greek alphabet in statistics. It's a fact. I'm not making it up. We all hopefully know we went through 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade when we studied statistics. So it is what it is. Let's focus on what is Six Sigma. So I have a few definitions of Six Sigma. Number one, business philosophy focusing on CI. CI stands for continuous improvement, as you can see in the slide in front of you, whether you're watching the webinar on your computer, PC, iPhone, Google phone, whatever device you're using. Second definition, Six Sigma is a mindset. Okay. Third definition, Six Sigma is an organized process for structured analysis of data. So you go figure. Let me spend a minute here. What are we talking about in 2020 and for the last 2-3 years? Big data, right? Before that, data analysis. Most of the universities have a specialized master's in data sciences. We Six Sigma practitioners, we have been analyzing data for last 20, 30, 40 years. The foundation of Six Sigma is based on structured analysis of data. Six Sigma processes, Six Sigma projects cannot be successful if we do not do a structured analysis of data. So this definition is very, very important, very, very critical, especially in today's day and age. Number 4 definition, a standard deviation, which is a measure of variation, as we all hopefully know, representing the optimum level of quality, right? So what is standard deviation? Measure of variation. So let me break it down for those people who don't like statistics, right? So if a process averages 3 minutes, so let's say it takes me 3 minutes to brush my teeth, okay? But there might be some variation. On certain days it takes me 2.5 minutes, certain days it takes me 3.5 minutes. So those are my variation, and I can calculate the standard deviation. So Six Sigma can also be calculated using those terms, because remember, Sigma is a statistical definition. So we can have Six Sigma from that perspective. So Six Sigma from a statistical standpoint is 3.4 defects per million opportunities. Let me spend a minute on this definition. Many companies, GE, Motorola included, focused on this definition of Six Sigma and focused on Six Sigma as a goal, Six Sigma as a metric, more than Six Sigma as a business philosophy, more than Six Sigma as a mindset. So which definition is correct? Again, not doing a poll. I'll leave it up to you guys to figure this out for you. So I saw when we did a poll, 15% of you are pros. A few of you are, those individuals who participated in projects. Think about it after you watch, after you listen to this webinar. What is Six Sigma to you? I'll tell you what is Six Sigma to me. Out of all these definitions, all the experience I've gained, Six Sigma to me, in a nutshell, is just one word. Six Sigma to me is a mindset. And when you think of Six Sigma as a mindset, then everything else on this slide, business philosophy, structured analysis, 3.4 defects per million opportunities, that all gets in place. Now, will I always get 3.4 defects per million opportunities? Probably not. Will I get to 4 DPMO from 6 DPMO? Maybe. Is that an improvement? Absolutely. To me, Six Sigma is a path towards continuous improvement. It's a path towards process improvement. And if you start thinking from a perspective that I want to continuously improve my processes, I want to stop defects or I want to reduce the defects, then you can apply Six Sigma in any sector, whether it's service, manufacturing, public, healthcare. Then I can start using Six Sigma to solve any problems that we have, whether it is, the plane that we lost 2 years ago, whether it is a virus we have. One of my students, 3 years ago, he's actually a tenured professor at Rutgers, MD for more than 30 years. He has been trying to use Six Sigma or apply Six Sigma on a problem that he or his home country called Sri Lanka in South Asia has been facing, where a lot of young men have been dying for the last 30 years, and WHO, United Nations have not been able to solve the issue, and so now he's been trying to figure out a way to deploy Six Sigma to get to the root cause of the issue. And I was talking to Margaret just yesterday and this morning whether we should focus on coronavirus as a case study and how we can deploy Lean Six Sigma. But interestingly, this afternoon we have another webinar by one of our experts of Rutgers Business School, Dr. Farooq Dana, and he's going to talk about coronavirus. So we thought we'll just focus on the case study that we chose, and I encourage you all to attend his webinar as well on coronavirus. But going to the point, all of these definitions, if you just focus on that one word, Six Sigma is a mindset, they fall in place. Are the other definitions correct? Absolutely. But if you just focus on 3.4 DPMO, then you probably are not focusing on Six Sigma as a mindset. You're probably not focusing on Six Sigma as a business philosophy. And somewhere, somehow, I have seen in my experience that companies over a period of time forget that there's a thing called organizational culture. And they totally forget that culture plays a role in deployment of Lean Six Sigma. And as a result, we have seen negative effects of using Six Sigma as a metric. Things like low employee morale, things like high turnover. So be very careful of just running after this definition. So with that, with the hope that you have at least got the gist of what is Six Sigma, let's go through these different bells, which I'm sure you might have heard, even those individuals who are just somewhat, aware of what is Six Sigma. I'm sure you must have heard of, all these different titles and interesting roles: yellow, black, white, master bells. So let me give you a quick 30-second or 60-second primer on what these bells do. And we, of course, we took it from the karate system. So there are 4 basic bells, and I follow the ASQ methodology. ASQ stands for American Society for Quality. Yellow belt, kind of the lowest level, someone who knows the basic analytical tools, someone who understands the concept of Six Sigma, someone who can assist green belts and assist them in running a Six Sigma project. Green belt, a little bit higher, someone who can lead a project, a Six Sigma project. Black belt, higher than the green belt, someone who knows statistical tools, leader of the team implementing Six Sigma projects, and typically runs 5 to 10, maybe even more than 10 projects simultaneously. MBB, the master black belt, the trainer, the coach of the project, someone who trains green belts, yellow belts, black belts, and so forth. And of course, also leads all the projects, reviews, and understands statistical theory, and basically someone who sponsors a lot of training programs and so forth, and deals with the executive sponsor, the steering committee, and the C-level suite. So those are the MBBs. Let me take a second here and ask Margaret if we have any questions so far on Six Sigma before I jump into Lean.
Yes, we have a couple. We have a few greetings to you, by the way, from people who took your classes. People saying, you know, checking in to say hello, but
Hello, everyone.
So a couple, one question, one comment. I'll bring forth now.
Sure.
Do you think Six Sigma should be an important training document for everyone in a company that wants to implement Six Sigma?
Absolutely, that's a great question. And so, you know, think of this as a maturity curve for any company. And so when my organization is hired by a company which has no experience whatsoever in Lean Six Sigma, typically what we recommend, you know, we recommend cherry picking 20 to 50 employees, train them on yellow belt first, make them go through some projects, and then green belt. Then we cherry pick some of them for black belt training over a period of time, which may be a year, year and a half, or 2 years. Our recommendation is that every individual in the company goes through at least a white belt training, which I know is not listed on this slide, but white belt training is typically a 3 to 4 hour of virtual online training. So think of it this way, that when you join a company, you go through a lot of trainings, right? HR training, mandatory procurement training, compliance training. Our recommendation is that Six Sigma becomes a core part of culture. So anyone who joins a company ABC should also be trained on Six Sigma. So all the employees in the company speak the same language. They understand how important process improvement, continuous improvement is to this company. And we have data now. I've done a lot of research where companies that focused on 100% training versus just selective training, their success rate over a period of 3, 5, 7 years, it's a day and night difference. So absolutely recommend doing that from a cultural standpoint.
That's great. And then the other thing I'll just bring up now, and we can address some of the other questions at the end, was that this is very, you know, Six Sigma specific. So our audience member says it's important to note that perfect Six Sigma is utopia. The power in the Six Sigma application is the exponential amount of improvement going from even a 1 level up to a 2.
Absolutely, I agree. You know, again, I call it the circle of continuous improvement. You know, you go from 1 to 2, and then you try to get to the next level. That is the power of continuous improvement. And if you just focus on achieving that 3.4 DPMO, and you achieve 3.5, 3.6, and you think you're a failure, that is not the right approach, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. And we can revisit some of the additional questions at the end.
Great. Thank you, folks. All right, so with that, let's jump right into the Lean. And you know, I have a quick definition of Lean from ASQ: producing the maximum sellable products or services at the lowest operational cost while optimizing inventory levels. So typically when I teach this in a class, whether it's virtual or face-to-face, we spend quite a bit of time discussing this definition. But given the time we have, I'm going to break it out for you here in this webinar. So, Margaret, when I take my mouse, can you see the mouse, the cursor?
Yes, you can see a tiny little arrow, so people have to look very carefully for it.
Okay, thank you. So please follow the cursor, the tiny little arrow. So you see I'm moving it here, maximum sellable products or services. So this is the first area I want to focus on, right? So this is number one. Number two is this one, lowest operational cost. And then number three is optimizing inventory levels. So I always try to break this in three different areas. Number one, again, maximum sellable products or services. So lean focuses on products and services both, not only on products. Many people think of lean as lean manufacturing. So please keep in mind, lean is not just lean manufacturing in 21st century. Lean is a mindset also like Six Sigma, okay? So you can apply lean in hospitals, you can apply lean in offices, you can apply lean in government sector, you can apply lean in education sector, and we have done whatever I'm speaking right now. I have plenty of case studies. We have done this in the last 15 years, okay? So lean is not just lean manufacturing, it applies both for products and services. What do we mean by maximum sellable? Producing the maximum sellable, that you also have to focus on the demand, okay? Number two, lowest operational cost. So lean focuses on lowest cost. Remember I said lean is all about reduction of waste. So we are talking about reducing waste. So our transactional cost, our operational cost goes down. So lean is very fundamental, it is very commonsensical, and the case study I'm going to show you, you'll see what I mean by lowest transaction cost, while optimizing inventory levels. So here, we're not talking about the traditional definition of inventory. When we think of inventory, often my clients, my students, they jump straight to the traditional definition of inventory, which is raw materials, work in process. But in this definition, think macro when we think inventory. In hospitals, inventory is also number of patients. In hospitality, which is one of the industries which is really struggling for the last week and a half or so, right? So think Marriott, for example. Inventory is number of rooms that are occupied, right? So when you think inventory, again, do not jump straight into production mode and think, oh, this is only applicable for manufacturing. Inventory can be applicable in the service sector also. So please try to absorb this definition, and remember, lean is not lean manufacturing. Lean is both lean manufacturing and lean mindset. And to me, lean is all about lean mindset. With that, let me give you a quick background of lean. So you see these two pictures here. Henry Ford Model T, hoping, so we have 143 attendees, hoping at least 100 out of 143 have heard about Model T at some point of time. And again, in the interest of time, cannot talk a lot about Henry Ford. I'm a big fan of Henry Ford. I'm a petro head, which means I'm a big, fan of cars and like to drive cars, the real cars, but, things are changing very rapidly, very quickly. So in the next 20, 30 years, I think we'll have a different picture here. We already have that picture here, by the way, in some other classes, but the students who have taken my classes, they know we talk a lot about not Model T, but Model 3, which sounds very familiar, but right? So Model T gave rise to lean thinking, and we are still using this lean thinking into Model 3. So read about that, and maybe we'll do another webinar about Model 3 one day, Margaret. And then Toyota's continuous improvement after World War II. There's an interesting story which I would like to share here. This is a picture from a store called Piggly Wiggly supermarket in Memphis, Tennessee. Piggly Wiggly used to be, and they are still around, a supermarket chain from 1940s onward. And the story goes that people from Toyota Motors, they came to the US after World War II, and they wanted to benchmark our best practices to implement that in their manufacturing. And they went to Ford, they went to a lot of other manufacturing sectors, but they also went to stores like Piggly Wiggly. So what you see here, and what is also evident in this term here, is self-serving. So back in the 1940s, 1950s, this was not the regular norm case when we used to do grocery shopping. What was the norm? The norm was, you'll make a list, okay? So you'll say, okay, I want bread, I want dozen eggs, I want milk, I want butter, I want cream, and you'll give the list to the person behind the counter. He'll bring everything to you. What do you see on the screen? These people have their own grocery carts, and they are serving themselves, and they're going in and they're coming out. Similar to what you see in stores like ShopRite and Ralph's in the West Coast and Vaughn's and all the other stores, right? Is this lean in 2020? Absolutely not. Was this lean in 1940? Absolutely yes. Did Toyota took this idea in their manufacturing? They did. And I confirmed this with Mr. Kano, Dr. Kano, who is credited with Kano analysis. I had the opportunity to meet him when I got my 5-in-1 medal, and he confirmed this story. So if I go back here, Toyota manufacturing is really, really credited to the success of lean thinking. And again, we don't have time, but a lot of our quality professionals, they actually left US, they went to Japan and they helped Toyota, and then they came back in 1980s, and Deming is one of them. You can read about Deming, D-E-M-I-N-G, for those of you who have no idea about quality management. Read about Deming, look him up, watch a few videos about him on YouTube, and you learn a lot. Or you can always join our mini MB on Lean Six Sigma, and you learn a lot about Deming from us. So with that, let's talk about lean and waste, because lean is all about reduction of waste. So there are 7 forms of waste. Okay, the easiest way to remember the word Tim Wood. Why Tim Wood? If you look at these 7 forms of waste, T-I-M-W-O-O-D. I'm running a little bit behind, so I'm not going to read through this, but you'll have a copy of this recorded webinar. Right, Margaret?
Yes, we are recording, and everyone will get a copy of it at the end. And for people who didn't join us live, we didn't have their email to send it to them, it'll be available on our website.
Perfect. Okay, so transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, overprocessing, overproduction, defects, these are all waste. And in the interest of time, I'm going to keep on going through so we can spend more time on the case study. Maybe I can spend real quick 5 minutes on this slide to kind of give you a gist of lean, value added, non-value added, business value added. These are the types of activities in a process. And I always use this example to explain the 3 activities in a process. So let's say Gurpreet goes to see his doctor, okay? So let me actually quickly, I'm going to improvise here, Margaret. I'm going to open a new presentation. Can you guys see this, all of you?
Yes, we see it. We see all the actions.
Perfect.
Yeah, that you're taking.
So I'm just trying to find the pen. Margaret, if you know, please help me out.
Oh, okay. So if you were trying to write onto the slide, you should have actually drawing tools that you can use from the GoToWebinar menu. And if you went to that little orange arrow, and down at the bottom of that very skinny menu, you should see drawing tools there to use them rather than even opening up a new
Got it.
slide.
Perfect. Okay. So let's say, and my drawing is really poor, so I apologize to all of you. Let's say this is a doctor's office, okay? And so I go to the doctor's office. Let's say this is the door to the doctor's office, and here is the receptionist area. All right. So I go and I ask the receptionist, or I tell the receptionist, I have an appointment with Dr. So-and-so at 1 p.m. The first thing she asked me, or he asked me, is, for my identification, number one, and number two, my insurance card, right? I show him or her my identification, my ID, and my insurance card. After that, they send me to a waiting area. So let's say this is the waiting area, and in the waiting area, they have some chairs, some magazines, and a TV, and on the TV, they're showing some interesting or boring, channels. And after waiting here for about, I don't know, 20 minutes, I am seen by a nurse, and the nurse takes me to a different area. There are different nursing rooms, and in the nursing room, they check my vital signs, and vital signs typically are my blood pressure, my temperature, my weight, and a couple of other things, right? That takes about 5 minutes, okay? And after checking my vital signs, the nurse, she takes me to the doctor's room, which is somewhere over here, and I wait here in the doctor's room for another 10 minutes, okay? So then the doctor comes, and doctor asks me, Gurpreet, what's going on? Let's say I went there for my migraine headaches. She looks at my record and she says, okay, you know what? I'm going to increase your dosage by 1 pill and so forth. And so the doctor's visit takes about another 5 minutes, and then I leave. So this took about 5 minutes, okay? So now let's go back here. Everybody with me? All right. So what I'm trying to say here is, again, in the interest of time, value-added activities are those activities which I, as a customer, and customer has a different meaning in the terms of Lean Six Sigma world. Who is a customer? Anyone who uses the output of a process, right? So in this case, I'm the customer, okay? Not because I'm paying, but really because I'm using the output of the process, okay? So I, as a customer, went to the doctor's office. The 5 minutes that I spent for the verification of my ID and my insurance, was it value added, non-value added, or business value added? I wish I could do a poll, but in the interest of time, it is not value added from my perspective. Why? Yes, it is something they need to verify. They need to make sure it is Gurpreet and not Robert who went to be seen. And yes, they need to take a look at my insurance card so they can get paid. But from my perspective, I really went there to be seen by the doctor. So the only value added activity in this is these 5 minutes. So to make long story short, the only thing I'm concerned about is these 5 minutes. This is value added. This is the blue portion, okay? Everything else is non-value added. So these 5 minutes are the business value added, not non-value added, business value added. So business value added is those activities which I, as a consumer, as a customer, don't pay any value to. However, the process people have to conduct those activities in order to provide value to the customer, okay? So if they did not verify that this is Gurpreet Singh, they cannot provide value to me, okay? So these 5 minutes here are business value added. Now let's talk about these 20 minutes. These 20 minutes here where I waited and I watched TV, I read the newspaper or some journal article, those are complete non-value added. These are complete NVA. NVA are also called MUDA, M-U-D-A. It's a Japanese word, okay? The 5 minutes that I spent with the nurse, where the nurse checked my vital signs, my pulse, my temperature, my blood pressure. From my perspective, again, I went there for my migraine headaches. It is business value added, not MUDA, because those 5 minutes that the nurse spent, the doctor read the notes, right? So in order for the doctor to increase the dose or not increase the dose, she needed to read those vital signs. So these are business value added. Now let's move on to these 10 minutes where I waited for the doctor. 10 minutes, again, I'm not doing the actual poll, but think about it. for 5 seconds. What do you think these 10 minutes would have rated? Yellow or red? And hopefully you all know the answer. Complete red, complete Muda, right? So I'm hoping you all are with me, even though we are not doing the poll. And I hope you all understood the concept of value added versus non-value added versus Muda. So, okay, Margaret, how do I get rid of this pen now?
If you want to return to the drawing tools part of the menu, you can select it there or unselect it there.
Perfect. No, it doesn't let me. Pointer maybe? There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. So with that, with the hope that you all understood what is Lean, what is Six Sigma, and at least the basics of Lean and the limited time we have together, let's talk about what is operational excellence and how can we achieve operational excellence using Lean Six Sigma. And before we go into how we can achieve operational excellence, I thought it's probably a good idea to discuss what is not operational excellence. So let me play a quick video here. So what you're seeing, my friends, on your screen is, let me play it again. This is a random car, okay? And it's gonna run into a car called Ford Pinto. This is one of the trial tests that Ford is conducting in probably early 1970s. So maybe 1971 or 1970, or maybe even 1969. So again, this is not Ford Pinto. This one is a Ford Pinto. And let's see what happens next. So there you go. So when Ford Pinto is hit by another car in the rear, Ford Pinto catches fire, okay? This was one of the 41 tests conducted by Ford before they launched Ford Pinto in the 70s. And out of the 41 cars, 37 cars caught fire, okay? 37 out of 41. So 4 cars did not catch fire. They conducted root cause analysis. They were able to figure out what's wrong with the car, okay? What do you think they did? Fix the root cause? No. They decided to launch the car as is because they wanted to launch the car before any other American company could launch a car in the small car segment, because the other cars in the small car segment were all Japanese, and it was all about launching the car and being the first to market. First to market is a marketing thing where you reap the benefits. Many people died. Many people lost their loved ones. But this car ran on the streets for more than 70 years. And Ford was never found guilty. And this is not the only one. What you see here on the right side, this is one of the ignition switches by GM. Many of the GM vehicles from 2001 through 2014, the ignition switch had a problem where if you were driving a GM car on the highway, and especially if you live in California or Texas or Arizona, driving at 70, 80 miles an hour legally, okay, your car will just stall because the ignition switch will come from start to stop. The power steering will lose its power. The power brakes will lose its power. And people behind you will not be able to stop, and they'll ram into you. Again, many people died. And GM knew about this issue. The engineers kept on complaining to the executive management, and GM kept on saying, shh. What we see here, Samsung, what we see here is how the outside world looks like from the inside of a yoga pant, very famous yoga pant called Lululemon. I hope everybody knows Boeing 787. I hope everybody knows this recall from Takata. So the point I'm trying to make is none of these represent operational excellence. And unfortunately, actually, all of these could have been stopped, all of these, if they would have followed fundamental principles, fundamental concepts that we use in the philosophies of Lean and Six Sigma. Things like FMEA, things like root cause analysis, fishbone diagram, Pareto analysis, and so forth. Very fundamental. I'm not saying black belt level, I'm saying green belt level. So today in 2020, Ford has been doing really well for the last 10, 15 years. A lot of their companies across the, or units across the world, they use Lean Six Sigma. Takata, it's gone. It has been acquired by a different company. Samsung did a really okay job. They were able to survive. GM, they paid about $900 million and still paying fines. Boeing, we all know they're still struggling. Their fate yet to be seen. Lululemon, they came back, but again, somewhat questionable. But let's, with that in the backdrop, let's go through a real case study and see how we can apply Lean Six Sigma to achieve operational excellence. And I picked a very simple case study from service sector intentionally because I wanted to make a point that you can actually use Lean Six Sigma in any context, okay? So this was just a timeline to give you an idea how long it takes, and I took the years out. This is called blinding of data. So this gives you an idea. We started the project in September, as this process mapping workshop in October, end of October, drill down to the root causes in December, solution planning workshop in January, and then proposal of solution plannings in February, and then after that it's all the actual solutions. We followed the DMAIC methodology. Again, in the interest of time, won't be able to go through the DMAIC, especially to a lot of individuals who don't have a lot of information about Six Sigma, but this is the fundamental backbone of Six Sigma. There are other approaches also like DMA, DV, IDOV, but this is a fundamental backbone for projects that need process improvement. So define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And within each, you can see some of the activities that we do within define, within measure, within analyze, within improve and control, and so forth. And again, you can see the timeline. So XX is 1 year, and then XY is the year after XX. Okay. XY plus basically means that it's going to continue after that quarter. So Q2 of 20XY plus. Okay. Here's the DMAIC approach. So we're going to define the problem and objectives. We're going to measure what we need to improve. Can we measure this? Analyze the processes, define the factors of influence. In the improve phase, we're going to identify and implement the improvements. And then finally, in the control phase, we are going to assure that the controls are in place and improvements will sustain. So really, this is a circle of improvement in my mind. Okay. And if you take a course in Six Sigma, or you take the Green Belt mini MBA, you learn a lot about DMAIC. You become a pro in DMAIC. What you see on the screen now is what we call a project charter, and this is the actual project charter. Let me walk you through the opportunity statement. In a theoretical world, we should call it a problem statement. Okay. So from a theoretical standpoint, this should be called a problem statement. Why do we call it an opportunity statement in a practical world? This is where remember I was talking about the cultural standpoint. This is where what I've learned that from a cultural standpoint, we should be very careful. So imagine if you work for a company where the champion or the executive sponsor has been working for many years on a project. You want to be very careful calling it a problem because it might be something that they're very proud of. So oftentimes I tell my clients, my students, to replace the term problem with opportunity. So opportunity is basically sugarcoating the term problem, right? So it's still a problem, but opportunity is a better way to call problem, right? So opportunity statement is kind of similar to problem, but we don't call it a problem. So opportunity here is optimize the facilities work management process to increase effectiveness in resource planning, asset management, and customer communications. There are three things that we are trying to hit here in this particular project. Number one, we're trying to increase effectiveness in resource planning, i.e., how many resources, how many people we have. Number two, asset management. For those of you who are not familiar with the facilities management space, asset management typically is managing all the assets, your inventory, your tables, your raw materials, all the other assets, whether it's IT assets or otherwise. And third is, of course, your customer service. And who are the customers in facilities management? Think about it for 5 seconds, and then I'll give you the answer. Who do you think are customers for facilities for a company? The whole company, right? You all hopefully have worked for a company, right? So facilities department, what do they do for us? If anything goes wrong, my lamp is not working, I'll open a facilities work order. My desk is broken, I'll open a facilities work order. My chair is broken, I'll open a facilities work order. So everybody in the company is a customer for facilities department. They serve the whole company. The output from the process of facilities management is used by the whole company. Therefore, the whole company is a customer. What are the project goals and objectives? Conduct value stream analysis for the process. What is value stream analysis? And again, you learn a lot more about Six Sigma terminology if you go into the training, into the courses. Value stream is just, a nice terminology that we use. I gave you an example about, me going to the doctor's office. And if you understood that value, non-value, and business value, so we conduct a thorough value stream analysis. We do as-is process mapping. Is it that easy? No, it takes a couple of days to conduct first as-is process mapping and then figure out which activity, which step of the process is value added, which one is non-value added, which one is business value added. Is it interesting? You bet. Is it fun? Absolutely. I mean, I love it. You ask me to do value stream analysis for any process, even if it is snowing outside, I'll put on my snow boots and I'll say, let's go for it. Maybe I'm biased because I'm passionate about process improvement, but I love value stream analysis. I can spend days, I can do it in the middle of night. So you definitely have to enjoy process improvement to conduct value stream analysis. Otherwise, it can be quite boring. But someone like me, yeah, I love value stream analysis. Benchmark industry standard in resource planning, asset management, customer service. Establish baseline of customer satisfaction, transaction cost, cycle time, create procedures for regions. Here we have the core team. Here we have deliverables. Again, I've blinded the data, but if you look at the deliverables, improve customer satisfaction by X%, improve process cycle time by Y%, reduce cost to transact, and manage assets by Z%. All of these are what we call KPIs, key performance indicators. So what am I doing here? I am taking a stake in the ground now through this project charter with my client, with my stakeholders, that I'm definitely going to deliver this. So if I do not improve the customer satisfaction by X%, and again, X was a real number, I blinded that data, then I did not succeed in this project. So be very careful when you take a stake in the ground and commit to these deliverables. So if you look at this charter, you have an opportunity, you have goals, you have objectives, you have a core team, you have deliverables that are measurable, right? This is very similar to project charter that we typically do in project management. Your goals should be SMART, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, reasonable, timely. That's what we're trying to do here also. We have a timeline. Let me go to the second slide of the charter. We have a scope, what's in scope, what's out of scope. We have a process start, we have a process end. So start when the work order is received, end when the work order is closed. We have extended team members. Then we have identified all the risks, all the constraints. We have identified all the assumptions. So this charter takes a lot of time to develop, and you have to get it approved by the steering committee. Now, what is the steering committee? Typically, steering committee is 2 to 3 members of senior leadership. It can be, in this case, Senior VP of Facilities, because this is a facilities project, Senior VP of Shared Services, because in this company, the facilities reported to shared services, and maybe a Senior VP of Procurement, because typically facilities really works closely with procurement department, right? So you have 3 individuals in the executive committee who are basically interacting with you, coaching you on all the different things. Then the next thing is SIPOC. What is SIPOC? Really telling you who is going to be impacted by your process. Not so much the process map, which we'll discuss in a second, but it tells you who is impacted, who's not. So at a high level, we discuss the process. So what is the process for facilities work order? Request is submitted. Which request? The work request. Work order is generated. So let me give you a simple example. My chair is broken. I submit a request, okay? Based on that request, a work order is generated. The supervisor evaluates the job. The work is assigned to the mechanic or vendor. Work plan is executed, and the work is closed out. Now, this process is 50,000 feet. When I do the actual process map, let me show you. I know you cannot read it, and this is not meant to be read, but this actual process map took about 20 hours, okay? 20 hours of workshop. We had to invite people from different cross-functional teams. Now, why is this colorful? Because all the red steps, remember that pie chart? They are non-value added. All the yellow ones, they are business value added. All the blue ones, and we have the legend here, right? They are links to more steps. All the green ones, the customer value added. So if you look at this legend here, total steps, 155. Business value added, 60. Customer value added, 26. So only 17% of 155 are customer value added. And this is actually one of my more optimistic process maps. But let me go back to the SIPOC now. Purpose of SIPOC is really to identify the inputs, the outputs, but more importantly, the suppliers and customers. For people who are watching with a background in supply chain management, please do not confuse this with the traditional supplier vendor. This is not vendor. This is supplier. Who is the supplier? Individual, organization, department who supplies the inputs. Okay, so in this case, who supplies the tools? Maybe the vendor, external vendor supplies the tools. That's why we have put vendor as a tool, a supplier for tool. Operating procedure is the input. Who supplies the operating procedure? Supervisor supplies the operating procedure. Okay, so do not confuse this with the vendor. I know I'm a supply chain guy, so I typically have a tendency to jump straight to the vendor. Data gathering and analysis. So we did a lot of data gathering and analysis, Gamba walks, surveys, cost to transact, customer request, and based on all of this, we came up with some of these metrics. So customer satisfaction 3.82 over 5, 390 per work order was the cost to transact. Let me spend a second here. What is cost to transact? We basically calculated the time spent on every single step of the process, and we calculated the hourly rate, or we collected the hourly rate, and based on that, we took an average of how long it takes to work on a work order, and we came up with this number that in this particular company, ABC, it takes about $390 to work on one work order. I have similar projects where we have calculated the cost to transact on Mail, for example, you won't believe we have calculated that to deliver a piece of mail in certain companies, it costs $6. Can you imagine $6 just to deliver a piece of mail? And people in those companies, they used to think it is free, but it's not free. Then this is the fishbone diagram. Some of you might be familiar with this. We conducted root cause analysis, and by the way, this is overview. The detailed version is here, just to give you an idea how detailed we go. And then based on all of this, and I'm just giving you overview right now, we came up with a list of solutions. So we came up with 49 different solutions. We just didn't stop here. We did an impact effort matrix with these different weightings. So we gave a weighting of effort here to cultural barriers, cost, time, and system. We gave a weighting based on impact to cost reduction, customer satisfaction, cycle time reduction, and employee morale here. Margaret, how are we doing with the time?
So we're about out of time, actually. And I was, excuse me, going to mention that to everyone who's been asking questions, one of the things we can do is generate all those questions to Gurpreet and have Gurpreet have you follow up with some kind of, written type of response, a blog post, something along those lines, because we're right at our closing time now.
Sure, we can do that. So I'll just take about 3 or 4 more minutes.
Okay, so whoever can stay with us for 3 or 4 additional minutes beyond our time, and then Gurpreet, just keep in mind that I'm a little bit limited myself with having multiple webinars today.
Sure. So based on this, and we followed again the project management methodology. We categorized each of these 49 solutions, gave them or assigned them to different individuals, and going back, and again, I had to blind some data. If you recall here, our cost to transact was $390 per work order to start with. We were able to reduce it to $130 per work order. Our customer satisfaction index went from 3.82 to 4.44 in the final surveys, 6 months and 12 months into the solution phase. So this is just one of the several projects we have worked on. We're doing simple things, and again, if you think about what we have done data gathering, data analysis, we have done root cause analysis, we have done solution planning, some simple Lean Six Sigma tools. Haven't done a lot of statistical analysis. We have not used any statistical software like Minitab. This is a simple government agency. Please don't ask me the name. Somewhere in the country, okay, and the results are phenomenal. And then, of course, we want to make sure that they sustain over a period of time. So we do the surveys every 6 months to make sure it becomes a part of the culture. So with that, I'll stop, and I hope you learned at least one new thing today. Thank you very much for joining me. And I'll give it back to Margaret.
So thank you, Gurpreet. Great amount of content, certainly. And I just want to apologize to everyone who asked questions and wanted to wait out, a verbal answer. We'll make sure that you get some kind of written answer to all those great questions that were coming in throughout the presentation. So you've been an amazing audience, and we appreciate that. And just a friendly reminder to everyone listening that the RBS Virtual Lunch and Learn series takes place monthly. We've tried to make it easy for you to remember by consistently scheduling in the middle of the month, the middle of the week, and the middle of the day, what we refer to as meeting us in the middle. And in response to emerging issues, we occasionally deviate from that schedule to remain informative on a timely basis. For more information, you can always visit our webpage, business.rutgers.edu/alumni/lifelong-learning. We have an exciting schedule of topics and presenters lined up for the next several months, thanks to suggestions from our audience like you. So we encourage you to keep sharing your great ideas. We want the series to continue to meet your needs. So please stay online very briefly for a quick 3-question survey about today's event, and one of the questions is actually a free-form field to type in topics and/or speakers you'd like to see in future webinars. And finally, as I mentioned when our webinar began earlier, a link to the archived recording of this presentation will be emailed to you, and it will also be on the Business Insights page of our website. So thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.